Hi friends! I'm super excited to show you the cards I made with this month's Paper Pumpkin kit, and there were quite a few of them, so I'm going to split this video into two, and we're going to start out with some simple stamping with this video, and then we're going to go progressively from there. So just in case you don't have your kit yet or you didn't see my unboxing video, these are the cards that we got instructions to make, and they're all beautiful on their own. And this stamp set is very versatile, and I'm going to show you so many different ways to use it. You're just going to be like, wow, I can't believe there's so many different ways to use this. So we're going to start out with some simple stamping, and I'm going to use one of the swallows from the kit. I'm going to use the ink from the kit, which is Early Espresso, and I'm going to use the little flower stamp from the kit. And all I'm going to do is stamp the flowers in the top right-hand corner of the card. Now, this card is folded, and I don't want to get my ink on the back of the card, so I'm going to hold it down while I do it. And I'm just going to, not thinking about it too much, I'm just going to stamp some flowers along the top right-hand corner of the card. And I want it to look as though maybe there's a tree up there or something, even though these aren't meant to really, they're meant to stand on their own and not be a tree, but I want it to look as though the bird is flying and there might be a tree hanging overhead. And we're not going to do too much stamping here, just a little bit. Just enough to give the idea. It's going to be very simple. And then we're going to use the bird and place the bird right about there. It doesn't really matter at what angle the bird is because the bird flies in any direction, so very simple. I'm just going to close up the ink so that I don't get it on myself. And for this technique, I'm going to use a Stampin' Blends marker. And this one is Light Old Olive. And as you might know, Stampin' Blends have two different ends. They have a nice brush tip, but for this technique, I'm going to use the other tip, which is the pointy, firmer tip. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a ruler, and I'm going to use my Stampin' Grid Pad to section off lines. And I'm going to just line my ruler up with, you know what, I just remembered, I want to use I don't know if everybody gets both measurements, but this is the imperial, and for the purpose of this card, I want to use the metric measurements because it's going to put the lines closer together, and I'm going to show you examples of both later, and I liked it when we were using half centimeters. So I'm going to line it up with this cross line here. I'm going to take my ruler, and by the way, you need to have a Stampin' Chamois that is wet on hand for this technique because the ruler is going to get dirty and you want to be able to clean it as you go. So I'm going to line my ruler up with the next line down, which is half a centimeter from the top of the card at the moment. And I'm just going to very lightly take my marker and go across the card, drawing a line anywhere that there isn't a stamped image. I'm going to move the ruler down. Oh, and before I move the ruler, I want to clean the ruler each time with my Stampin' Chamois because you don't want to, when you're moving the marker along the edge of the ruler, it tends to transfer onto the ruler sometimes, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to drag that ink down your card. So now I'm lining it up, at least from my perspective, with the next line down, which is the 1 centimeter mark. And once again, I'm just going to drag this across very lightly. Oh, I made a little dot there, but you know, it's just a handmade card, so we don't have to worry about if it's perfect lines or everything's perfect. Okay, now I'm moving it down to the 1.5 centimeter mark, and I want to show you too, I want to start off the paper a little bit so that there isn't that big ink spot, and you want to move quickly. See how I slowed down there? And because this is an alcohol marker, it tends to come out very quickly, the ink. So if you hesitate or you slow down at any point, it's going to leave blobs and blotches. So once again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but if you want it to look more streamlined or you don't want there to be blobs and blotches all over your card, try to move as quickly as possible and to hold it as lightly as possible to the paper because the ink runs quite freely. once again, I'm just dragging and stopping just somewhere before and after the stamped image. And I want to remember, I keep forgetting, but I want to remember to clean, see the ink that has transferred onto that? You don't want to drag that down your paper. And I'll show you examples of cards that I made where I did drag it down the paper and I didn't clean it off well enough, and what happens if you do that. Actually, each time I have to get in that habit. It's hard to remember. And because I think that cards should have a little white space on them, I don't want to go all the way down the card. Just personally, if you would like to, go right ahead. I mean, it's a whole different look. You can do whatever you like, but I think that cards just should have some space to breathe, let's say. And also, the color that you use is up to you. I just happen to be using green because I'm a starting out demonstrator, and I only have 6 or 7 markers at the moment, and so I've already used all the other colors that I liked. And so this is the reason I'm using the green one, but you could use yellow for a sunny day, or you could use, well, I'll show you examples of the other ones I did, and you can figure out which one you like. And when we're done with these lines, which is going to be quite quickly because we're not going to do the whole card, I'm going to stamp a greeting, and the card's going to be done. So it's really easy to make, and in this case, I'm not going to mat the card. This is going to be about as simple as a card can get. I mean, you don't even have to draw these lines. You could have stopped the card right at the beginning, and it could be that simple with all the stamping. I think I'm done there. I'm good with that. So I'm going to clean the ruler off one last time, close my marker. I'm going to grab one of the sentiments, 2 of the sentiments actually, which I've already placed on a block. I'm using Hello, Dear Friend, and I'm just going to dip it into the early espresso again. Actually, I'm going to pound it into the early espresso, and I'm going to flatten out the card for the stamping. And I'm just going to place it down here in the bottom corner. Hold it down for a few seconds to let the ink transfer. And the card is done. Do you see how easy that was? Like, sometimes you just need a quick card. And so you could replace this sentiment with anything. Do you have a birthday that you're on your way to go to and you just need something fast? Here's the card for you. It's so easy. And now I'm going to show you some other examples of other cards I made. This one is a different spacing because I used the opposite side of the paper. This one is using the imperial measurements, and this is probably 1/4 of an inch. I didn't realize I was doing that until I did it. So it's up to you to decide which one you like better. This one is 1/2 centimeter, and this one is in blue, and this is also 1/2 centimeter. Now I want to show you right here, I hadn't cleaned the ruler, and when I got to this point in the ruler, I happened to get some blue ink on it. So that's what happens if you don't clean your ruler off. And this one, the same thing happened. I wasn't cleaning the ruler, and the marker was picking up little bits of ink along the ruler as I was progressing. But I kind of like the look of this one, actually. Some of the lines are darker. I don't know what was going on with the marker, but at some points it was allowing more ink out than at other points, and so it gave a different effect. I mean, once again, none of these cards are the same, as you can see. This one's a little splotchier, but when you look at the card from a distance, I don't think you notice any of that. Now, I prefer the lines closer together as compared to this one with imperial measurements, but it's up to you. So and that's a nice little card set that you could make for somebody too. If you just took these 4 cards, put them together, and took some of the string or ribbon that we got in this month's kit, tied it around each other, that would be a very quick and easy present for somebody as a hostess gift if somebody has you over to dinner or whatever. Okay, so for the next card, we're going to use the bird again. And this time I'm just going to take a piece of card that is cut down to just slightly smaller than 4¼ by 5½. So I guess this would be 4 by 5¼ This piece of card is 4 by 5¼ And this time we're going to use both of the bird stamps, actually. And we're going to use the ink pad again. And once again, this is going to be some simple stamping. So let me just move this closer to me. And all we're going to do is place these birds close to each other, but not overlapping. I like to, if the bird is flying this way, I like to turn it around completely and put it close to it, sort of mirroring it, just because the spacing, when you're doing this type of stamping, it's important, if you want it to look even, to get the spacing somewhat even, because that's the only thing that's going to make it look weird, I guess you could say, is you want to keep the spacing somewhat even. And it's not easy to do. You have to really plan out where you're going to do it. So for example, here I left a space. Now, it would be sort of awkward to put, I mean, I could put the bird like that, or I could put it like that. You know, honestly, I think this just takes some practice, because the first time I made these, there were gaps all over my card, but now I can see that this bird fits in there nicely, and you just continue this all the way up the card. Now, if you want, you could leave some white space right now. You could stop right now and leave some white space and put your sentiment, like we did with the last card, like leaving a little bit of white space. But for this card, I'm going to stamp the birds all over, because I'm going to use it as a background. And this is a nice way to... Another thing is, see, if I'd stamped that bird there, it would be too similar to the one beside it, so you just want to keep moving your stamps. You either move the paper or move your stamps, whichever is easiest for you. And that's really all there is to it. And I think it looks nice on this card. Now, if there's a little space at the edge that you want to fill in, you can just use a wingtip. Stick somebody's wing in there. Nobody's gonna know that you just needed to fill in some space by doing that. And once again, I'm going to do a mirror image of this bird here, just to keep it even. That might actually be a little bit too mirrored. And now you see how I've backed myself into a corner here. There isn't really a good way to fit this bird in. Let me see if I can fit this one in. I guess I'll have to use this one. I guess you want to work from, you don't want to go around the edges like I did, maybe. I'm learning as I go myself here. Let's see if that works. You know what, I think that works for this card, because this is just going to be used as a background anyway. So we're going to take this and we're going to put it right onto this card base. So I'll get my, oops, sorry for hitting the camera. Get my snail. And we'll just attach it, hopefully in the center. There we go. And then I wanted to soften it a bit, because I wanted to put a sentiment down, but I wanted it to look a little softer. So I got a piece of vellum, and all we're going to do is put some adhesive right in the middle of the vellum. And that is cut to the same size as the card that we just stamped on. And then for the sentiment, I'm going to use, let me see what we have here. I'm going to use thank you, because I just want this to be a simple card. And I use thank you cards the most, to tell you the truth. It's the card that I'm always reaching for. So there we go. Thank you. And I'm going to put some fast fuse on the back of that. Or snails, not fast fuse. And we're going to put that right over the spot that we put the adhesive so that it's hidden. And then I went ahead and cut out another bird, and we're going to use some dimensionals. And this bird, I noticed that this bird, it was easier to put the small dimensionals on. The other bird's extended wingspan made it difficult to put one of these on. You had to sort of cut it in half because it didn't fit on the bird properly, but I found that this bird was a little bit easier to fit these dimensionals onto. So we'll just get the back off. There we go. And I'll just have the bird flying off the card there. And I think that makes a really nice card. Look, isn't that sweet? And the fact that the vellum pulls up a bit at the corner because it's not attached, I think that adds to the look of the card, because as you can see, if you flatten out the vellum, it looks, you can see everything in a non-cloudy way. Let's say it's sharp, and then as it pulls back, it becomes foggier around the edges, and I love the way that looks. So that's card number 2, and that's very simple, not difficult at all. And then from that card, I wanted to show you another example. This card I used I used both of the birds again, and I left a bit of white space this time for this sentiment, which I used my punch to punch out and then put the sentiment on top of. And in this case, I just used one of the words. You could use any of the words, but this one fit nicely on the wings, so I did. And I added it to a crumb cake card base. So that's example number 3. And let me just move this out of the way. Then for example number 4, I used some of the, let me move this out of the way before I touch it. I used the same 2 stamps, and I left a bit of white space at the top, and I colored them in. And in this example, I used the pencil crayons. I found that the pencil crayons gave it a much lighter look, so I'll show you some examples of where I used the markers, but the pencil crayons just give it a softer look. And then what I did here was I used some vellum to create a mat, but the vellum wasn't showing up, so what I did was I colored it with my Stampin' Blends marker, and as you can see, it's I think that's Pool Party that I used. It just gives it, it wasn't showing up at all on the craft cardstock, and I wanted it to, so I colored it. So that's a trick you can do. You can just color it with your Stampin' Blends. Now the next one, I used some gold cardstock underneath, and for this one I colored it with the markers. Now do you see the difference? This one is much lighter, and you can almost see the coloring lines, I think, with the pencil crayon. And this one is using the markers, and I just find the markers a lot more fun to use. I think it's because it's easier, like there's no thinking, you just put the marker to paper. And I am the worst colorer in the world, so as you can see, these birds and these birds do not look the same. And that's because my coloring skills are terrible. I've got a long way to go with coloring. I really need to take a class or something. I was trying to make the bird's belly a little bit lighter, but I just couldn't. I don't have the skills to do that. So anyway, this one I colored them darker, and this one I colored them lighter, and that's about as far as my skill level goes. Also, I gold embossed the sentiment. Now, these cards are all slightly different. You see, I left some white space here, which I tend to like better than when there's no white space. This one, I made a mistake and I stamped on the card, so I'm not going to make it into a card, but This is also different. As you can see, there's barely any white space on this card at all. And this one I used a finger dauber, and I just dipped it into the ink and I just went around the edges to make it look a little distressed, I guess is the word. And this one is also different. These are all different. It just depends where you want the white space to be. This one, it looks as though there's a line going this way with the white space. This one, the white space is here. I think this is my favorite. I think if I were to make this card for, say, a card fair, I would make this one again, and I would probably color it with the markers, just because I just find the markers really easy to use. So that's example number 3, I think we're on now. And with that card in mind, I wanted to show you a technique that you can do to give your cards a little bit of dimension. Now, as you can see with these cards, they're flat. I didn't put any dimensionals on the back. It's just a flat card. So here's a tip, or not a tip, but a technique, I guess is the word. I cut a piece of vellum, and the vellum is the size of the card base, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And the card front is just a little bit smaller. I'm not sure exactly. It's, what is that, 1/2 inch smaller? So 1/4 inch on all sides. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece of vellum and I'm just going to scrunch it. I'm going to call this the scrunch technique, where we're just going to scrunch it up. Now, you can go to town scrunching it, but I just want to let you know that this vellum is, it will rip and it will perforate at the corners if you scrunch it too hard. So scrunch it, but the first time I did this, I formed it into a ball, and I actually ripped it quite a bit. So I didn't mind that. I'll show you the result in a minute. Sorry for all this noise. But the more you scrunch it, the more volume you're going to get when you put it down on the card again. So, see, I ripped it there, see. But once again, the paper is meant to look distressed with this, so ripping it is part of the process, I guess. And then, when you put it back down on the card, it creates volume. You see, you don't need dimensionals because this is rising the card up from the card base. So I'm going to try, I haven't actually tried sticking this down yet, so we're going to see how this works. I think it should work fine because even though it's crumpled, you just can flatten it out again as much as you want. And it's even going to leave a little bit of a border, I think, because it's crumpled. Oh no, actually it's not. But I just like the dimension that it gives. And then we're going to adhere this piece. And then we're going to flatten it out. Because even when you flatten it out, there's still some dimension. So see that? It gives it a bit of a quirky look. The edges are sticking up. It kind of looks like it's floating. I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but it's interesting. And when you touch it, it's an interesting feel to the card, let's say. Okay, so that's, was that example number 3? Okay, now we're on number 4. And for this card, some simple stamping again. This one is 5 inches by 3 7/8 of an inch. And for this card, we're going to use the, we're going to use the feather that came with the kit. So let me just remove the bird, clean the bird, put the feather on. Okay, and we're just going to do some simple stamping with the feather. I'm going to have the feather sit here. There are so many uses for this kit. I had to stop myself and make a video at some point because I was just thinking to myself, I could make cards with this all day long. I made, I made so many cards. I was just having so much fun. All right. There we go. Clean that off. And how about we use this one again? Hello, dear friend. Okay, and so for this card, I mean, you could leave it like that. I think, once again, if you need a quick card, there's nothing wrong with that card at all. But I'm going to bring in my pencils again. And I'm just going to quickly color these. And the thing is, you can, like, as I mentioned, I'm not very good at coloring, as you can see. But for this type of image, I don't think that you really need to be the greatest colorist. You just kind of need to stay within the lines. And I'm not even very good at doing that, to tell you the truth. And so I'm just going to use the same colors repeated for these cards. And I'm going to use a blender pen. So as you can see, my coloring is not good. I'm leaving spaces. I'm going a little quicker than I probably would if I wasn't filming this too. I'd probably go a little bit better. I'll show you an example in a second with a card that I made already. But the nice thing is that the blender pen sort of smooths all that out so that you don't need to be perfect with your coloring. And that's great for me. As I mentioned, that's another reason I really like the markers, and I just haven't amassed enough of them to be able to shade with them. And I haven't learned how to shade with them either, so I have to figure that out too. Color, I'm going to use blue. And now the other thing is the blender pen that I have is not a Stampin' Up! Blender pen. And I suspect that a Stampin' Up! Blender pen would actually work better. So you want to make sure your blender pen is clean when you start. And you can see that when I do this, when I use the blender pen, it's evening out any lines that I might have. But I think that this blender pen that I'm using, I see other people using these pens, and I just suspect that the Stampin' Up! One is probably better. I'm going to order one in my next order. I don't find that this one moves it around quite as much as I would like it to, but it does the job. I'm also excited to try the lift marker that goes with the Stampin' Blends. I have one of those on the way to me. I haven't seen too many people using that. I did see Martin Stone using it. If you haven't checked out Martin Stone's YouTube channel, I just love his cards. I can't get enough of him. He was using it the other day, and that's where I didn't even know that it existed. If you don't know, it's a pen that you use with your Stampin' Blends markers to lift the ink from your coloring. Okay, there we go. We're done. And the only other thing, I mean, I think this is a cute card as it is, but just because if I were to put this on a card base now, I think I mean, I like that actually. I think it looks good, but I'm just going to add a little border to it by using my finger dauber. Whoops. And I don't want to put too much ink. I just want to put a very light border. Oop. This is so messy. You have to be careful when you do this that when you come along to your next card that you remove this paper. That's what's nice about this grid paper is you can just pull it off and throw it in the garbage and you have a nice new work surface because this ink will definitely transfer to your next project easily. All right. Whoops. I'm not doing a great job here. You know, half of it is being on camera. I feel nervous and I know that I have to go as quickly as possible. And so I don't think I do my best work on camera, let's put it that way. But I'm just trying to get enough of a border here to make it show. If I had more time, I would probably even this up a bit. Whoops. And so there. So that gives like a bit of a border to the card, and I think it makes look a little bit nicer. So I have another example here. This one, you see, I didn't put as much around the edges, and this one, the only difference, I guess, with this one is that I put "Grateful for You." So there's the difference for you. If you're trying to decide how much to put, there's with a lighter amount, and there's with a little bit darker. I think I like it darker. I think I would probably go with this one. And once again, very simple card. How long did that take? I don't know. I lose track of time when I'm making these videos, but I'm assuming that was probably less than 5 minutes. And the last card I want to show you is really easy. See this mess right here? I don't like this. Here, I'll just put this over it. Actually, you know what? I'll just rip a page off because it's just, or you know what? I'll just remove it. Oh, there we go. It was already ripped off. Okay, and for the last card, all I'm going to do here is I'm going to take some of these labels that we got, and I'm going to strategically place them on the card. This will be the bottom one. And let's see. I think we'll put them like that. And I have a couple of birds. You know what I do when I first get a stamp set? I always stamp out the images and then I just start playing with them on a card. I always have a few handy to move around because you just never know how best it's going to look, you know, until you play around with it a little bit. So for example, I'm trying to figure out now where I'm going to put the sentiment. That's not leaving enough room to stamp a sentiment there, so if I move it down a bit, I like that. I'll put grateful there. Whoop. And then we'll put, should that go like that? Or should this go on top? I think that one should go on top. And what should we put? Grateful for you. And then maybe the dear friend. Okay. Grateful for you. And that's not going to fit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clean this stamp off and get rid of this one. Clean the stamp off. And it says Dear Friend, but as you can see, Dear Friend is not going to fit. So I'm going to be extra careful to make sure this is clean. And then I'm just going to ink up the part that says Friend. So that it fits. There we go. And okay, and then how about a few dimensionals on the back? So see, I don't know how far we are into the video, but I'm always conscious that my videos are running long because I just make so many cards and I get so excited and so involved in what I'm doing that I feel like I should break them into two, because apparently people want quick videos, but I'm sure there are people that enjoy watching longer videos. I know I do. I just put a video on, and if I'm really into it, I just watch the whole thing. I'll watch 30, 40 minutes of somebody making cards if I really like it. Or sometimes I do other things while I've got videos playing. I don't know if you're the same. I think should I put that one right on top? Yeah, so I'm never sure whether I should make a longer video or whether the video should be short. So let me know what you think. In the comments, tell me, do you like longer videos, like 20 to 30 minutes, or do you like shorter videos, like 5 to 10 minutes? Because I'm just not sure what to do. Okay, now see this bird is problem causing because, where's my scissors now? Don't know where my Stampin' Up! Scissors are. I'm going to have to use these scissors. Because the bird's wingspan is so long and thin. Actually, I think it's going to be okay. There we go. We'll use the edge dimensionals. They're okay. There we go. Yeah, see, I haven't even made it through half the cards that I've made, and actually the second batch of cards that I made are more exciting, I think, than these. Okay, I'm going to put that there. And this one too. And you could add some flowers to this, or a feather. I don't know if I have any flowers left. I've used up quite a bit of what was in this month's kit. There, let's put him there so he doesn't stand up too high. There. And see how that gives some nice dimension? Isn't that a pretty card? I think this needs something though. Let me see here. A flower or a leaf? I don't know about this leaf. I think the color clashes with the leaves in the flowers. I called this a leaf, this feather. I think this feather is clashing. But if I had some flowers on hand, I would probably put a flower. I think I'll do that and maybe show you in the next video. Anyway, that's it for this set of cards. So stay tuned and be sure to subscribe to see my next set of cards, which I'm going to film very shortly. Thanks for watching. Bye.